The courtroom doors swung open and Pam Bondi marched in, heels striking the marble floor like a judge's final verdict. The room hummed with tension. Reporters scribbled wildly, onlookers craned their necks, and a storm brewed behind the bench. This wasn't just a trial, it was a showdown. Pam, now the unrelenting U.S. Attorney General with a legacy of crushing drug rings and corporate giants, faced Leonard Voss, a judge whose silver tongue masked a shadow of corruption. His name carried weight, his rulings bent justice, and whispers of dirty deals clung to him like a second skin. No one had dared to cross him. Until now. What happens when the nation's top law enforcer locks horns with a man who thinks he's above the law? Will Pam unravel his empire, or will the system shield its own? Tell me, what do you see coming next? Her adversary loomed large behind the bench, Judge Leonard Voss, a 30-year veteran of the judiciary. Known for his iron-fisted rulings, Voss had a reputation that cut two ways: respected for his command, reviled for rumors of backroom deals. His sharp eyes tracked Pam as she approached the prosecution table, a predator sizing up prey. The case before them centered on Victor Grayson, a wealthy real estate mogul accused of siphoning millions from Florida's public funds. Grayson's scheme, masked as state-backed construction projects, had allegedly funneled taxpayer dollars into his private accounts, a betrayal Pam was determined to expose. The room pulsed with tension. Reporters packed the gallery, pens poised over notepads, while spectators filled every seat, their murmurs a low hum of anticipation. This wasn't a quiet proceeding, it was a public stage, and Voss knew it. As Pam set her files down, he leaned forward, his voice cutting through the buzz like a blade. "Miss Bondi," he drawled, "I hope the Attorney General hasn't come all this way just to chase headlines. We all know how much you love the spotlight. Former politician seeking glory. Wasn't that the headline?" The jab stung, a calculated nod to her past as Florida's Attorney General, a role critics had painted as more political than principled. Pam's jaw tightened, but she didn't flinch. She'd faced worse: drug lords, corrupt CEOs, skeptics who doubted a woman could wield power in a man's game. "Your Honor," she replied, her tone steady, "I'm here to present evidence, not play to the crowd. The facts will stand on their own." Voss smirked, unconvinced, and waved a hand dismissively. "Facts, huh? Let's hope they're more compelling than your press conferences." A ripple of chuckles ran through Grayson's legal team, but Pam ignored it. She'd barely begun her opening when Voss cut in again. "Tell me, Bondi, are you prosecuting Grayson or auditioning for your next campaign? I'd hate to waste this court's time on grandstanding." The interruption was deliberate, a power play, meant to rattle her before the jury. Pam met his gaze, unflinching. The battle lines were drawn. Voss wasn't just presiding, he was obstructing, and she knew it. This wasn't about procedure, it was personal, and Pam Bondi never backed down from a fight. Pam Bondi stood at the prosecution table, her voice cutting through the hum of the Florida Supreme Court. "Your Honor, the evidence before this court is clear. We have financial records showing Victor Grayson diverted over $8 million in state funds to shell companies he controlled. We have sworn testimony from insiders and internal emails where Grayson himself ordered the misallocations." She slid a thick folder forward. "This isn't speculation, it's a paper trail of theft." Leonard Voss barely glanced at the documents. "Miss Bondi," he interrupted, his tone dripping with condescension, "save the dramatics. I've seen your evidence before. Numbers on a page don't prove intent. This lacks foundation." He leaned back, folding his arms. Pam's eyes narrowed. "Lacks foundation? Your Honor, these are audited records, corroborated by witnesses who worked directly under Grayson. Are you dismissing them without review?" "I'm dismissing what doesn't hold water," Voss snapped. "You're spinning a story, not proving a crime. This isn't Hollywood, Bondi. Don't overact it." Her team shifted uncomfortably behind her, a junior attorney muttering under his breath. Pam pressed on, undeterred. The emails explicitly show Grayson instructing his CFO to reroute funds under fake project codes. "That's not a story. That's fraud." Voss waved a hand. "Emails can be misinterpreted. I'm not here to play detective for you. Next exhibit, or are we done with your fairy tale?" The dismissal stung, but Pam kept her composure. She pulled out a stack of affidavits. "These are sworn statements from 3 former employees who executed Grayson's orders. They detail how he bragged about bleeding the state dry. Does that sound like a misunderstanding to you? Voss smirked. Disgruntled workers with axes to grind, I've seen it 100 times. You'll need more than sour grapes to sway me. Sour grapes don't forge bank transfers, Pam shot back, her voice rising slightly. We traced the money to Grayson's personal accounts. $8 million doesn't vanish by accident. The gallery stirred, but Voss cut in again. Enough. I'm not convinced this rises above clerical error. You're fishing, Bondi, and I won't let you drag this court through your net. He turned to Grayson's counsel. Mr. Grayson deserves protection from this overreach. I'm inclined to strike these records. Privacy concerns. Pam's fists clenched at her sides. Privacy concerns? Your Honor, this is a public corruption case. The defendant doesn't get to hide behind privilege when he's stealing from taxpayers. That's not law. That's favoritism. The room buzzed. A reporter scribbled furiously. Voss's face hardened. Watch your tone, Attorney General. You don't lecture me on law. I've been on this bench longer than you've been chasing headlines. And I've been prosecuting thieves longer than that, Pam retorted. If you'd let me finish, you'd see the evidence is airtight. Or are you afraid of what it shows? Voss's gavel slammed down. You're treading on thin ice. Accuse me again and I'll hold you in contempt. Then hear me out, Pam said, her voice steady but sharp. Exhibit C, a ledger from Grayson's firm. It lists payments to a consulting group tied to his projects. Funny thing, the group doesn't exist. But you know what does? A receipt from that same group for a luxury watch delivered to your home address 2 years ago. The courtroom erupted. Grayson's lawyers exchanged panicked glances. Voss's face flushed red. That's preposterous, he bellowed, slamming the desk with his fist. You're fabricating lies to smear me. I'll have you disbarred for this. Slander in open court. It's not slander if it's true, Pam replied, unflinching. The receipt's in the file, signed by your assistant. Care to explain why a shell company paid for your jewelry, Your Honor? Voss leapt to his feet, his voice a roar. This is an outrage. You've got no proof, just cheap shots. I'll end this circus right now. End it, Pam cut in, stepping closer to the bench. You don't get to bury evidence because it stings. If you've got nothing to hide, let the record stand. Or are you scared the jury might start asking questions you can't answer? The crowd gasped. Voss's eyes blazed with fury. You're done, Bondi. I'm striking this nonsense and barring you from bringing it up again. One more word and you're in cuffs. Pam didn't blink. Strike it all you want. The truth doesn't vanish that easily. And neither do I. You're not just protecting Grayson. You're shielding something bigger. What is it, Voss? What's worth tanking your career over? You've lost your mind, Voss snarled. This is a courtroom, not your personal vendetta. Grayson's a businessman, not a criminal mastermind. You're grasping at straws. Then why's your name in his books? Pam fired back. I've got witnesses who'll swear you greenlit his deals. You're not just biased. You're in this up to your neck. Voss's hand trembled as he gripped his gavel. Witnesses? More liars you've coached? I'll have their statements thrown out too. You're wasting my time with this garbage. Time's the one thing you're running out of, Pam said, her voice low and lethal. The more you dodge, the guiltier you look. Keep talking. Every word's another nail. The gallery was a powder keg now, spectators whispering, reporters typing frantically. Voss glared at her, his breathing heavy. You're playing a dangerous game, Bondi. You think you can bully me off this bench? I don't bully, Pam replied. I prosecute. And right now, you're sounding less like a judge and more like a defendant. Care to keep digging that hole? Voss's lips curled into a sneer. Get to your point, or I'll shut this down for good. My point? Pam said, planting her hands on the table. You're not presiding, you're obstructing, and I'm not stopping until I know why. The standoff hung in the air, electric and unresolved. Pam's team watched, tense. She didn't have the smoking gun yet, just a trail of smoke. But Voss's rage told her everything. He wasn't just annoyed, he was cornered. And she was only getting started. Pam Bondi stood firm at the prosecution table, her voice ringing out in the Florida Supreme Court. Your Honor, I call James Carter to the stand. A lean man in his 40s stepped forward, his hands fidgeting as he took the oath. Pam didn't waste time. Mr. Carter, you were Victor Grayson's senior accountant for 5 years. What did you witness regarding the state funds? Carter swallowed hard. I saw payments, millions, rerouted from public projects to fake consulting firms. Grayson ordered it, but the approvals, they came with Judge Voss's signature. Legal consulting fees, he called them. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. Voss's face twisted into a scowl. That's absurd, he barked, cutting Carter off. You're a liar, a sick, delusional fraud. This is nonsense. Pam stepped in, her tone icy. Your Honor, let the witness speak. Or, do you have a reason to silence him? Voss glared at her. I've got every reason to stop this farce. He's spewing garbage to save his own skin. Probably paid off by you, Bondi. Carter flinched but pressed on. I wasn't paid. I saw the documents myself. Voss signed off on every transfer, over $3 million in 2 years. Lies, Voss shouted, his fist slamming the bench. You've got no proof, just a washed-up bean counter with a grudge. Pam slid a file forward. Then explain this, Your Honor. Exhibit F, payment records with your signature authorizing Grayson's payouts. Care to call this a grudge, too? Voss snatched the file, his eyes scanning it before he flung it back. This is a forgery, a cheap trick. You've doctored it to frame me, Bondi. I'll have you in jail for this. Forgived? Pam shot back. We've got forensic accountants ready to testify it's real. You're not dodging this with bluster. I'm dodging nothing, Voss roared. You're a disgrace, twisting justice into your personal witch hunt. This ends now. I'm striking this trash from the record. You can't strike the truth, Pam said, her voice rising. Your name's all over it. $3 million doesn't lie. What did Grayson promise you, Voss? A cut? A favor? Voss's face turned purple. You're unhinged. Accusing a judge in open court? You've lost it. I'll bury you for this. Contempt doesn't even cover it. Bury me, Pam countered, stepping closer. You're the one sinking. Keep yelling. It's just proving my point. What's next? Threatening the jury too? The bickering jurors shifted uneasily, but Voss didn't back down. I don't threaten. I rule. You're out of line, Bondi. Carter's a puppet, and you're pulling the strings. Then let's hear him, Pam snapped. Mr. Carter, who else knew about these payments? Carter hesitated, then pointed. Voss's staff, his assistant, Mark Riley, logged them. He told me Voss demanded it stay quiet. Voss's head whipped toward his assistant, a wiry man in a gray suit seated behind the bench. Riley, tell them he's lying, now! Riley stood, his face pale. I can't, Your Honor. It's true, you made me hide it, threaten my job if I talked. I've got emails, dates, everything. The room exploded. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Voss staggered back, his voice a snarl. You traitor! You're fired. Finished. This is a setup. Bondi's behind it. Pam seized the moment. A setup? Your own aide's turning on you, Voss? That's not my doing. That's your guilt cracking wide open. You've coached him, Voss bellowed, pointing at Riley. Paid him off too, huh? This is a conspiracy. Pure filth. Riley shook his head. No one paid me. You did this. Told me to shred files, fake logs. I kept copies because I knew you'd throw me under the bus. Shut up, Voss screamed, lunging toward Riley, but a bailiff stepped in. You're dead to me, both of you. Bondi, you'll pay for this circus. Pay, Pam said, her tone lethal. You're the one cashing checks from Grayson. Riley's just the start. How many others are ready to flip? Voss's eyes darted wildly. You've got nothing. This is slander, perjury, a disgrace to this court. I'll have you all locked up. Then lock me up, Pam challenged. But explain this first. Why is your signature on a $500,000 transfer to a firm Grayson owns? Coincidence? It's fake, Voss spat. You're desperate, grasping at straws to smear me? Desperate, Pam fired back. You're sweating, Voss. The jury's watching. Keep denying it, see how that lands. Before Voss could respond, the courtroom doors burst open. 2 officers from Florida's Judicial Oversight Office marched in, badges gleaming. The lead officer, a stern woman named Clara Evans, spoke. Judge Voss, we've got an order for your immediate suspension. Step down now. Voss froze, then erupted. Suspension? This is a frame-up. Bondi's rigged it. A political hit. You can't touch me. I'm the law here. Not anymore, Evans said, her voice flat. We've got warrants, financials, testimony, your own staff's statements. Come quietly or we'll cuff you." "Cuff me?" Voss laughed, a jagged, unhinged sound. "You're all pawns. She's turned you against me. This is tyranny." Pam crossed her arms. "Tyranny's what you've been running, Voss? Signing off on theft? Bullying your team? Your throne's crumbling." "You shut your mouth," Voss yelled, slamming his gavel so hard it cracked. "I'll sue you, ruin you. This isn't over." "It's over when I say it is," Evans cut in, nodding to her partner. "Take him." Voss lunged for the bench's edge, shouting, "I'm being railroaded. You'll regret this, Bondi. You're finished." But the officers grabbed him, one pinning his arm as he thrashed. "Get off me. I'm a judge. Untouchable." "Not today," Pam said, her voice calm but piercing. "You're just a crook now." The courtroom descended into chaos, reporters shouting, jurors gaping, Grayson's team whispering frantically. Voss's cries echoed as he was dragged toward the door, his rein shattered. Pam watched, her pulse steady. She'd cracked him open, but the fight wasn't done. Something told her this was just the beginning. Leonard Voss's exit in handcuffs left the Florida Supreme Court reeling, but Pam Bondi had no time to savor it. Victor Grayson, pale and sweating at the defense table, leaned toward his attorney, whispering frantically. The lawyer stood. "Your Honor," he said to the newly assigned judge, "my client wishes to negotiate a plea in light of recent events." Pam crossed her arms. "A plea? He's facing 8 counts of grand theft and fraud. What's he offering?" Grayson's voice cracked as he spoke up. "I'll give you everything. Names, dates, accounts. It's not just Voss. There's a network, politicians, judges, all over Florida. I was a cog, not the wheel." The gallery murmured. Pam's eyes narrowed. "A network? Who's in it, Grayson? Spill it now or no deal." He swallowed hard. "State senators, a county commissioner, 2 other judges. They rig contracts, millions in kickbacks. I've got records, emails, proof." "You're lying to save yourself," Pam snapped. "Why should I believe a word from you?" "Because I'm dead if I don't talk," Grayson shot back, his voice rising. "They'll bury me. And you, if you keep digging—" The new judge, a stern woman named Ellen Hayes, intervened. "Enough. Mr. Grayson, you'll need specifics for any consideration. Miss Bondi, your stance?" Pam didn't hesitate. "I want the full list. Names, transactions, dates. No half-truths, or he's looking at 20 years. Grayson nodded, frantic. "You'll get it, but there's someone else. Mr. X. He's the real boss. I don't even know his face, just that he pulls every string." "Mr. X?" Pam scoffed. "Sounds like a ghost story. Give me something real, or this is a waste." "It's real," Grayson insisted. "He greenlit everything. Voss, me, the whole damn system. He'll come for you if you don't back off." "Threats don't scare me," Pam said, her tone cold. "Names, Grayson, now." Before he could answer, a juror, a wiry man in his 50s, stood up, his face red. "Objection! This guy's being coerced. You're twisting his arm, Bondi. He's saying whatever you want." Pam turned, stunned. "I'm not twisting anything. He's confessing because his shield's gone." "Bull," the juror shouted. "You've got him cornered. He'd say the moon's green to dodge jail. This stinks of a setup." The courtroom buzzed. Judge Hayes banged her gavel. "Sit down, sir. You don't speak out of turn." "He's right," another juror, a woman with glasses, chimed in. "How do we know you didn't plant this? You're the attorney general. Maybe you rigged it to look big." Pam's jaw tightened. "Rigged it? I've got bank records, emails, Voss's own assistant spilling it all. You think I forged a judge's meltdown too?" "Maybe," the first juror fired back. "You're too slick. Pushing him to squeal like that smells like manipulation to me." "I don't manipulate," Pam said, her voice sharp. "I prosecute. Grayson's talking because he's guilty, not because I puppeteered him." "Then why's he so scared?" the woman pressed. "This Mr. X crap, he's just parroting what you fed him." Grayson slammed his hand on the table. "I'm not parroting. Mr. X is real. He'll kill me for this. You don't get it." "Enough," Hayes barked. "Ms. Bondi, control your witness. Jury, you'll deliberate when I say, not now." Pam glared at the jurors. "They're questioning evidence, Your Honor. If they won't trust facts, this trial's dead." "Don't lecture me," Hayes snapped. "Get Grayson in line or I'll toss his plea myself." Pam turned to Grayson. "You heard her. Names or you're done." He slumped, defeated. Fine. Senator Paul Drayton, Judge Carla Sims, Commissioner Ed Holt. That's the top tier. Mr. X runs it from the shadows. The room hushed, digesting the bombshell. Pam's mind raced. This was bigger than she'd imagined. But the jury's revolt gnawed at her. She'd won a confession but lost their faith. And Mr. X lingered like a threat she couldn't pin down. Back at her table, her lead assistant, Sarah Klein, leaned in, her voice low. Pam, this is spiraling. Grayson's a loose cannon and the jury's turning. We need to pull back. Pull back? Pam hissed. He just named half the state's power players. We stop now, we lose everything. You're losing already, Sarah shot back. The jury thinks you're a bully, and this Mr. X, what if he's real? You're poking a hornet's nest. I don't care, Pam said, her tones steel. If we quit, they win. Voss, Grayson, this mystery man, they don't get to walk. Sarah's eyes flashed. You're gambling with our careers, mine, the team's, everyone's. What if Grayson's bluffing? What if this blows up in your face? Then it blows up, Pam replied, unflinching. I didn't take this job to play it safe. You're either with me or you're not. Sarah recoiled. I'm with you, until it's suicide. You're obsessed, Pam. This isn't justice, it's a vendetta. It's accountability, Pam countered. Grayson's scared because he knows what's coming. I'm not stopping for a few doubters. Or you. Sarah shook her head. Fine, but when this Mr. X hits back, don't say I didn't warn you. He can try, Pam said, her voice low. I've faced worse. Grayson piped up, desperate. You don't get it, Bondi. Mr. X doesn't try, he destroys. I'm a dead man already. Then talk faster, Pam snapped. Who is he? Where's he hiding? I don't know, Grayson cried. He's a voice. Bales burners. But he's got power, more than you can touch. Convenient, the first juror muttered, loud enough for all to hear. Another tall tale. She's got him trained. Pam spun on him. You want to doubt? Doubt this. $8 million stolen? Voss in cuffs? Grayson naming names? That's not a tale, it's a crime. Or a script, the woman juror sneered. You're too good at this, Bondi. Too perfect. Hayes banged her gavel again. Silence! Miss Bondi, wrap this up. Mr. Grayson, your pleas on hold until we verify. Pam exhaled, tension coiling in her gut. Grayson's confession had cracked the case wide open, but the jury's defiance and her team's fracture threatened to derail it, and Mr. X loomed, a shadow she couldn't grasp. She was in deep now, and the water was rising. The gavel fell in the Florida Supreme Court and Victor Grayson's fate was sealed. 15 years for fraud and theft, his empire reduced to a prison cell. The gallery emptied, reporters swarming with headlines, but Pam Bondi lingered at the prosecution table, her victory hollow. She'd toppled Voss, broken Grayson, exposed a web of corruption, yet the weight on her chest didn't lift. Justice, she'd always believed, was supposed to feel like triumph. This felt like a trap half sprung. Back at her office, a plain envelope waited on her desk. No postmark, no signature. She tore it open, and a single line stared back. You've won this battle, but the war's just begun. Her pulse quickened. A threat? A taunt? She scanned the room, half expecting shadows to move, but it was just her and the hum of the air conditioner. Mr. X, she muttered. Grayson's phantom puppet master had gone from a desperate plea to a gnawing presence. Her phone buzzed. Grayson's final document emailed from his attorney as part of the plea. She opened it, skimming the list of transactions and names already confessed. Then a footnote stopped her cold. X oversaw all approvals. Met him in 15. Bondi's AG office. Old friend of hers. Her breath caught. 2015. Her time as Florida's Attorney General. An old friend? She scrolled through mental files. Colleagues, allies, mentors, who'd stood close enough to wield that power? Her mind landed on Tom Hargrove, her deputy AG back then, a man she'd trusted with her life. He'd left for private practice in 17, citing burnout. Or so he'd said. Was it him? Grayson could be lying, tossing a grenade to fracture her resolve. But the dates lined up. Hargrove had access, influence, connections. She'd shared strategies with him, leaned on his counsel. If Mr. X was Tom, every win she'd carved out was tainted. Her own past a weapon turned against her. She stood, frozen, the paper trembling in her hand. Truth or trick? She couldn't tell, and that ambiguity cut deeper than any loss. Pam left the courtroom later, stepping into Tallahassee's humid air. The sky churned with gray clouds, a storm brewing somewhere she couldn't see. She stared upward, the letters warning echoing. The war's just begun. Justice she'd fought for, bled for. Was it real or just a mirage she'd chased into a maze? Voss was gone, Grayson caged, but Mr. X, Tom or someone else, lurked beyond reach. No cheers, no closure, just doubt, thick and suffocating. She clutched the document, its final line a riddle without an answer. The enemy wasn't defeated. It might have been beside her all along. Pam walked away, footsteps heavy, a question hanging in the silence. Who do you trust when the fight turns inward? Think about Pam Bondi standing in that courtroom, chasing justice through a maze of corruption, only to find the real fight might have been closer than she ever guessed. It's a gut punch of a lesson. The people we trust most can hide the sharpest knives. Voss fell, Grayson cracked, but Mr. X, maybe an old friend, left her questioning everything. Life's like that sometimes. You battle the obvious villains, only to wonder who's really pulling the strings. It's a wake-up call. Don't just scrutinize the enemy across the table, but the one beside you too. Trust isn't a given, it's a risk. Thanks for riding this roller coaster of a story with me, where justice twists into doubt. What hits you hardest here? Ever had a moment where loyalty flipped on you? Drop your thoughts below. Let's dig into this together.